Hello, everyone, and welcome to the devCodeCamp podcast. I'm your host, Carl Peterson, devCodeCamp's social media producer. Whether this is your first time listening or watching, or you're coming back for yet another episode, thank you so much for sharing just a few minutes of your day with us. In this episode, I got to sit down with one of devCodeCamp's wonderfully intelligent, kind, and knowledgeable instructors, one that you will likely cross paths with as a student of devCodeCamp. We talk about what makes him tick as a developer, how he approaches teaching, a bit of a glimpse into our course options, plus much more. So sit back, relax, and let the wisdom of Pascal carry you throughout the next few minutes of discussion together. This is the devCodeCamp podcast. So starting off with that very first question, what is your name and what do you do at devCodeCamp?
Yeah. My name is Pascal Pascarella, and I am a front-end instructor here at devCodeCamp.
Perfect. Thank you so much for doing this with me, Pascal, today. I really appreciate it. All of our interactions, and I'm glad that we get to spotlight you and your talents a little bit today. So as a developer yourself, are you often inspired by what students are doing?
Oh goodness, yes. There's so many, especially some of these back-end geniuses that come through. In different stacks, they approach these some of these solutions in the most unique ways. Things that maybe they piece together throughout their time here, or in a collaboration environment, they kind of just like this act of genesis just happened. And it's really cool to see.
Do you find yourself like seeing these students and you're like, man, I gotta step my game up and do something on my spare time? And
That is a constant fire lit under my behind.
well, that's great that you have that though. For real, it's nice to that because being a developer is collaborationship at its finest in a lot of ways, especially a professional developer. So that's great that you accidentally get that, I guess.
A nice little side benefit,
Sure,
little toasty behind.
just a little. So what would you say is the most important quality student should have, not only to make it to that graduation finish line, but to also launch their career afterwards?
Man, it really is like developing the skill of humility, or just like being okay with reaching out. If you were one of the smart kids in class and you got into tech, odds are you probably weren't that good at reaching out because everybody looked to you for the answers. And in tech, it moves too quickly, and you have to be okay with, first of all, people being smarter than you, right? People getting things more quickly than you. And second, being okay with asking them for help. And that's the biggest thing that they can do.
That's very sage advice. Where does failure play into that? It's kind of accepting, especially if you're kind of like one of these breadwinners, especially at like an early age where people come to you and you usually get it. Sometimes, imposter syndrome is a big thing that comes up in this podcast and also in the boot camp itself, because it's very real. But I mean, accepting failure, is that a piece of this puzzle too?
Yeah, I would say that it goes hand in hand. Like I'll tell students I've failed more times than you've succeeded. Okay. And then there's masters way beyond me who have done the same. Okay. Like you have no idea how much somebody has failed to get to their level of success. And and honestly, I think something in our brains, I think we have to, I don't know, it's like we have to get burned to know the oven's hot. Okay.
Yeah.
But from then on, we'll remember it, right? And when it comes to programming, it's the same. Like you have to remember, oh, you know what? I can't do that because it caused the thing to crash, or it was just this one little typo. I'll never forget it again. So
yeah,
I would say failure is huge. But
excellent.
It's a good burn, right?
Yeah,
healthy burn.
a good burn, right?
Yeah. Like a good workout.
Yeah, absolutely. Sucks in the process, but afterwards you
Yes.
feel that dopamine and you feel that progress. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
So as self-explanatory as this might be on the surface, could you explain, obviously from a high level, there's a lot that goes into this. Could you explain the classroom setting in one of our immersive courses?
Sure. In the immersive course, it's really kind of like a small, I mean, it's like a small classroom setting just in a live in like a live Zoom environment. So you'll be able to see the instructor, what the instructor's screen is doing, if they're showing a presentation or like a demonstration of code, or like maybe like a example on the internet that's live somewhere, right? Like a good example of a website or something like that. And then there's also the opportunity for collaboration with your teammates, with like your peers in the class, um, that can really spark some not heated debate, but like good discussion across teams or within teams. But even while you're working on projects, the instruction staff is always there. Okay. And Slack, our communication tool, our asynchronous communication tool, we're always there. We're always listening. So if you ever need a hand, right? If you're feeling like you're drowning a little bit, splash, right? Just make a little bit of noise and we'll get you back on track.
It's a great way of putting it. And can you do the same for the part-time flex course, kind of a high level? What does that look like? Because obviously very different in many ways.
Sure. Flex, because of the nature of the Flex program, it's really a boon to people who can't be there in the 9 to 5 every day. So they're doing it in the margins of their day, in the morning before work, maybe like after the kids go to sleep, only on weekends, whatever their schedule allows. That's kind of where Flex fits. The same Slack support is there, as well as a like a reserved slot for a one-on-one with an instructor.
Sure. And you yourself are implemented in both courses, depending on obviously what class it is or what time of month or whatever it
Sure.
is. You're in both. So you're definitely directly involved with both sides of it. So from your seat, what would you say when comparing the two? What would you say the biggest challenges students face for each course? Because just like the course itself, I'm imagining that there's different hurdles that they have to overcome, just in general.
Sure. The For immersive, um, and I guess this kind of dips into the flex course, the part-time courses as well. Um, I would say that before you get into the boot camp, watch Karate Kid. Um, like there's a reason you're doing wax on, wax off, and it's not just to polish the cars, right? So there's probably a reason that we're having you do it this way, because later we're going to snowball upon that foundation. Okay. It's going to be like an aha moment that you have to have. I can't just say, hey, here's why, and you believe me. You have to kind of experience that. So um that was that's kind of like the big that kind of applies to both. That you can kind of, I guess, uh
Sure, that
run with.
blanket. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Um
Karate Kid 2 is also equally a great motivational tool as well.
it
Just
is. It is.
mentioning that as well. Did you have something else to add to that? I didn't want to cut you
Oh,
off.
I would say that your ability to kind of persevere through it is what you want to take through. Like, just like make sure you're going through it, going through the process, embrace the process.
That's great. So let's shift gears a little bit.
Sure.
Pascal, for you personally, what's the most exciting thing about being a developer for you?
So I come from a design background, and so that influences my decision greatly. So I really, really like developing UIs. And if I can make an UI look clean and it performs well and it's lightweight, that's what gets everything firing for me, right? Making it look cool, making other people say, "Man, I want to build that." That's a nice little boost to the ego there, right?
Sure.
Um, uh, because ultimately, your code on the back can do all this amazing stuff. It can save the world, but if nobody knows how to use it or they hate using it, it'll never get bought in the marketplace. It'll never get downloaded in the app store, and that's unfortunate because you could have an amazing thing. So I'll always tell my backend team, like, your job is to make everything on the back amazing. And my job is to make sure the user knows it, that they can see it, and that they have just a good experience using or interacting with your application.
Sure. Both are immensely important for different reasons. So similar question, what excites you about being an instructor?
So I've been teaching for quite a while, not just at devCodeCamp, but like as a lifelong learner and part-time teacher. Um, the 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 knowledge you gain from breaking down a subject for somebody who is either new to the concept or is having difficulty grasping concept is pretty cool. And doing it in a live scenario, which means like, oh, they didn't get that analogy. Well, let's pivot. And now your brain is doing somersaults and like backflips, breaking down like, okay, what's another relationship that I can compare this to? And that makes you understand it better. Like, well, it's not really like an ant and ant hill, you have to think of something else. So that just making it that core concept just grounded in your I guess in your brain, in your mindset. And like a quote from Richard Feynman always sticks to me, like the guy who helped, on the Manhattan Project, physics professor. He loved teaching because it made him better at the fundamentals, which made him ultimately a better physicist
It's
when he
like
did
a
those deep dives.
Sure. It's like a chess game where everybody wins.
Yeah. You learn, I learn. Exactly.
Yeah,
It's a good win-win.
sure. So this is one of my favorite questions to ask. It's a recurring question, but it's one of my favorite to ask,
Mhm.
and I can't wait to hear your answer.
Oh boy.
Why coding? What was the thing that started that journey? You said you came from
Mm,
a design background. What's the origins of this?
mm. So, um, I definitely never touched it until recently. Like I said, design. I'm kind of like artsy fartsy, like the music. I like the art. I like designing stuff. I was good at science, but tech never kind of spoke to me as far as like coding, and like I hated word problems in math, and that's kind of like what coding is. Like, hey, like here's a word problem, make a solution for it, and
Yeah,
that's code.
sure.
Um, and it kind of got to the point in the last few years where like design and development, like coding development, was easier. Okay. I never got too heavily into, you know, really deep website design.
When you say easier, let me stop you real quick. When you say easier,
Sure.
do you mean for you or do you mean technology wise has just advanced?
For a new user, for a
Okay,
new
gotcha.
developer,
Gotcha.
it's easier
Okay.
to like, if you're coming from a design background and you say, hey, I want to be a developer, it is now easier to kind of onboard yourself and learn a framework to just pump out awesome front ends.
Got it. Okay.
It's This was not in place 5 years ago. Like I wish I had, the frameworks that we have today in their current state. Who knows what's coming up? But yeah, like it's just so much. There's so much amazing design stuff that we can do on the front end, um, and knowing the full stack, right, both front and back, makes you better at both and makes you a stronger asset to every team. So no matter where I go, right, or where students go, they can know how to communicate. If they're on the front, they know how the back talks. And if on the back, they know what the front needs to show. So that's what's, I think we're at a very unique point in time where like we have a lot of help, and developers can really start putting hands on keyboard and generating good stuff very quickly.
So you got into coding kind of like a natural evolution of what you already enjoyed, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, just right place, right time. Yeah.
That's great. That's really exciting because of how many other people like you are stumbling on and able to pick up very quickly because of what's in place. It's
Yeah.
really
See it
exciting.
every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, man, I wish I had that.
Yeah, sure. Well, think about people from the 80s who had a giant bulky computer screen. It was like,
Mm-hmm.
we are
Yep.
giving you nothing. You work for 100% of what comes
Just
out of this.
roll it in. Here we
Yeah.
go.
Right. Well, that's super exciting and also very inspiring too, as an artsy fartsy person myself who doesn't know how to do code.
High
I'm
five.
yeah, right there. So recently on LinkedIn, it was asked in one of our social media LinkedIn polls, what is the thing that took you from being a total beginner to being the level you are now? So let me ask you that. Is there some secret key that you can share, or is it multiple things?
Yeah. So to achieve mastery, anything, right? Whether it's content creation or music or football or whatever, you have to put in the time, and you have to put in more time than everybody else. So if you want to stand out, you got to get up early. You got to before you get in the boxing ring, you need to have been getting up at 4 a.m. to do the running, so you have the endurance to outstand or to beat the other guy in the ring, and that's how it is. So I would say that you have to be willing to put in a little extra time to keep up and eventually excel, and that's what people look for, right? That's what instructors look for. That's what your senior developers, right? When you get on the job, that's what they're gonna look for. So that's it. Just it helps you help everybody, makes you better, makes you a better asset, makes you more valuable in the marketplace. All that.
Sure. Yeah. Win, 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 win is really what
Yes.
that that's great. Do you believe in order to become a long-term successful developer and even, anything tech, also a data analyst, do you think you have to adopt this always be learning and learning to learn mindset? Do you think that plays a major key factor?
Yeah, I would definitely agree that it does, because like I said, the industry changes so quickly, right? The tools are different, the languages are moving forward, they're getting better, they're getting faster, they're getting um, you know, just there's always something new, and you have to learn to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? It's like this constant state of anxiety that, all right, I know what's going on now, but in 2 years I need to make sure that I am still aware or keeping pace, right? There's a pulse check. You need to stay on track or on top of what's coming down the line. Like, oh, this language is pushing out a new change in 2 months. All right, let's make sure that we're accounting for that in the projects, or that my personal projects are being updated or ready for that, ready to receive that update. So yeah, you gotta be okay with with two things, in my opinion. It kind of comes to your first question, I guess. Um, the first one that I tell everybody is to stay hungry. Like you're asking right now, you just like wanting to learn more. Just be ready to consume. Stay excited about it. The second thing, stay humble. Be humble enough to ask for help. Be humble enough to reach out. Be humble enough to take criticism, internalize it, and turn it into a more productive product.
That's wonderful advice, along with everything else you've mentioned so far. You're talking about this constant state of anxiety, and every 2 years, it's kind of like riding. It's kind of like riding a bike, but every 2 years they completely switch the wheels, like completely to a total new material, to a total new shape.
Yeah,
You're like, I know how to ride it, but
pretty
whoa,
accurate.
these are squared wheels. I
Yeah,
don't know how to ride a squared wheeled bike. That's hard to
yeah,
say. Yeah,
and
but
it's now a
still, yeah.
treadmill.
Yeah,
Like, what's
yeah.
going on?
Exactly. Great advice. Pascal, we're actually coming to the end. This has flown by. Thank
Oh
you so
wow.
much again for your time and your wisdom. We have two questions left, and I wanted to
Okay.
ask you this specific question because I think you're a very interesting guy. I'm not just saying that. Not to say that the people I haven't asked this to are not interesting people, but I had to throw this in because
Okay.
I'm dying to know your answer. So here's a fun one. Okay. If you could have a personal one-on-one lesson with anyone in history, dead or alive, who would you love to sit down and be their student for a day? And
Man.
why?
Man. Man. Let's keep this in. This is me pondering, right?
Okay, let's keep it in.
This is
Yeah.
my wheels turning.
All right.
Um, I would say maybe like I would love to have a heart to heart with Marcus Aurelius, right? The if you've ever read Meditations,
Okay.
um, it's like he's emperor of Rome, one of the later emperors of Rome. And he had a very stoic mindset that was just the way he approached life was a very methodical, very realistic, down to earth way. And he was so open to the idea of, hey, if you know a better way, let me know. Like that's huge. And in our industry, that's what you need. You, I want that where I don't have to consciously remind myself, okay, I need to make sure that I'm open to suggestion. Don't let your ego, right? I need to, that should be part of who I am. And I still struggle with that, right? I want to, I
It's
want to
hard
be
to
good. I
achieve.
want to be the best, right?
Yeah.
The best there ever was and catch them all. And you have to be okay with not being the best in the room. You should be okay with, or better with, working with the best in the room to produce the best stuff. That's who I would probably sit down with is Marcus Aurelius.
Fantastic answer. I'm glad you did ponder, because that's a big question, and it's also a question that is comes out of left field. So thank you for entertaining the idea of the question. So I said there was two more. That was one, which means obviously we have one more left, but very quickly wanted to add another one. Obviously there's books, there's a bookshelf behind you.
Mm.
Also, the what you just answered reminded me that I know that you've suggested books in our Slack community and our company discussions. So two questions left in the podcast officially now, and the first of the two is could you suggest a book that made you a better developer for anyone who's listening and really wants to dive in, who's a reader?
A better developer. Atomic Design by Brad Frost. I got this back in 2015 when I was just starting my journey in the front end in the full stack world, like the real world.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing way for UI developers. Okay, and it works for backend as well. The concept of compartmentalizing reusable slices of your code. That idea is like a core. It's a core memory for me. um, it's a good book. It was written almost 10 years ago, but the concepts are universal. The truths, they're paradigms.
Sure. Fantastic. Thank you for that. And now we've reached the final.
Okay.
I usually end these all with the same question.
Mm-hmm.
Can't wait to hear your answer. So if somebody was watching or listening to this right here, right now, who was very interested in not only pursuing code, but also becoming a devCodeCamp student, hopefully, what would you say to them?
I'll see you in class. No, that's a little too brave there, Pascal. No, realistically, I would say, um, I would say, try a little bit out first. Okay, it's the reason that we get paid well in the tech industry is because not everybody likes or wants or can do what we do. So find some free resources. The internet is what we'll be working with. So go out, find some resources, maybe get a cheap class if you got one to just dip your feet in there. Say, you know what? I kind of like this. Odds are you either come out a little bit more knowledgeable and ready to get spooled up, or you figured out that it wasn't for you.
Pascal, great advice. That question plus everything else you've mentioned, so many quotes to pull from. And I really appreciate everything you do, not only for devCodeCamp and our students, but also for sharing just a few moments of your day with me and the audience here of the devCodeCamp podcast. So thank you so much, sir.
You're so welcome, Carl. Anytime.
Absolutely. We'll do it again tomorrow. All right, everybody. Thank you everybody for joining and letting both of us give you just a couple of minutes of your time today. And I hope that you are feeling as enthusiastic as I am from this conversation. You know where to catch us. Just if you're on social media, type in devCodeCamp. If you are a podcast listener, type in devCodeCamp on YouTube, devCodeCamp. Anything is devCodeCamp. Pretty good branding. So and also there's plenty of links on this blog post and video as well. So thank you everybody again for joining. My name is Carl Peterson. Thank you, Pascal. We'll catch everybody in the next one. Bye-bye.